The council chamber was enormous, carved from pale crystal and lit by a soft golden glow. Towering alien leaders filled the space, their bodies strange and varied. Some had multiple arms, some had armored plates over their bodies, and others had long serpentine necks that swayed as they whispered among themselves. They had gathered to discuss an unusual proposal, the addition of a human to their ranks. Humans were considered fragile in this part of the galaxy. Their soft skin and small frames had long been a source of amusement and doubt. Many of the council members laughed as the suggestion was first raised. "A human?" hissed a reptilian commander, his scales glinting in the light. "They cannot survive even our training grounds, let alone the battlefield." "Soft-skinned," added an insectoid member, clicking her mandibles in amusement. "How could they carry even the smallest weapon without breaking?" Despite the mockery, one figure stood quietly observing the commotion. He was older than most, with deep lines etched across his face, eyes sharp and calculating. "Do not underestimate them," he said calmly. "Humans come from worlds we call Deathworlds, planets that survive storms, predators, and gravity that would crush many of your species. Their survival instinct is unmatched. They are not weak. They are something you do not understand." The others scoffed. "Dangerous? Perhaps. But fragile is all I see," another alien muttered. Before the debate could continue, the doors of the chamber opened, and a young human girl stepped inside. She was small and slight, her hair tied back in a simple braid, her eyes bright and alert. Her clothes were plain, made for comfort and movement rather than style. She looked fragile, almost delicate, and the laughter that had filled the room moments before grew louder. "She cannot be serious," hissed one of the counselors, an armored giant whose bulk made the walls shake. "She will not last a day in training." But the girl, named Alara, did not flinch. She walked with a quiet confidence, her steps measured, her gaze steady. She did not respond to their whispers or their laughter. Her eyes, calm but sharp, seemed to measure each of them in return. The older commander who had spoken earlier smiled faintly. "Let her show you," he said. "The humans are different. You may be surprised." Training began the very next day. The alien recruits towered over her, muscles bulging, limbs long and powerful. Their movements were precise and intimidating, a dance of strength that seemed almost impossible to match. Alara, by contrast, looked as if she could be blown away by a strong wind. The first test was endurance. Recruits were required to run through a course that twisted through rocky terrain, climbed sheer walls, and waded through deep water. The alien warriors began easily, their powerful limbs eating distance quickly. Many of them threw mocking glances at Alara as she lagged behind. Some even muttered under their breaths, convinced she would collapse within minutes. But Alara did not collapse. She did not even slow. She ran at her own pace, her breathing controlled, her steps precise. She used techniques learned from Earth's Deathworlds, ways to conserve energy, ways to balance her weight, ways to endure pain. Hours passed, and while alien warriors began to stumble and falter, she pressed on, her small frame surprisingly resilient. By the end of the course, some of the largest alien recruits lay panting, covered in mud and sweat. Alara, though tired, emerged steady, her eyes calm. The laughter in the training area had vanished, replaced with murmurs of confusion and a touch of fear. One insectoid trainer leaned toward another and whispered, "How is it possible? She is human. And yet—" The older commander watched, silently from a distance, nodding slightly. "This is only the beginning," he murmured. "Never mistake fragility for weakness. That is a mistake many have made and many will pay for." By the time the day ended, the council members who had doubted humans began to reconsider. Not all of them, of course. Some still whispered that her performance was luck, that she had merely survived by chance. But even the skeptics could not deny that there was something different about this girl, something quiet and unyielding that hinted at power they could not yet understand. Alara herself did not boast. She did not smile or celebrate. She simply cleaned her training gear, tightened her braid, and prepared for the next day. She knew this was only the start. The galaxy saw her as fragile, soft, and weak. She intended to show them otherwise, one challenge at a time. Even as the sun set over the alien world, casting long shadows across the training grounds, the whispers persisted. The fragile girl. Maybe she is more dangerous than any of us thought, and, for the first time, the council could not dismiss her. The next morning, the training grounds were alive with movement and noise. Alien recruits clanged their weapons against practice dummies, leapt over obstacles, and shouted commands to one another. The air smelled of metal and dust, a scent of hard work and battle preparation. Alara stepped onto the grounds quietly, her small frame almost lost among the towering aliens. Her first task was combat drills. The instructors lined them up, and each recruit was handed a weapon. For most, the weight of the arms was nothing. Massive, reinforced alien blades or plasma rifles easily handled by their powerful bodies. Alara's weapon was small by comparison, a standard human blaster barely reaching her shoulders in size. The other recruit snickered as she gripped it, her fingers barely closing around the handle. "Watch closely," one of the reptilian instructors growled to the recruits. "Humans are fragile. They will break under pressure. Don't expect anything from her." Alara ignored the comment. She had learned long ago that survival required focus, not pride. She adjusted her stance, eyes scanning the area, calculating distances and weaknesses. The first drill began. Pairs of recruits faced each other, engaging in mock combat with strict rules. Heavy blows and fast strikes tested both strength and speed. When her turn came, her opponent was a massive insectoid warrior, twice her height and 4 times her weight. He swung his blade with a force that could crush stone. The other recruits laughed, certain she would collapse under the first strike. Alara did not flinch. She sidestepped, moving with surprising agility. She kept low, dodging strikes and staying, just out of reach. Her small size, once considered a weakness, became her advantage. She was harder to hit. Every move was precise, economical, and calculated. The insectoid warrior's strikes grew more frustrated. He swung faster, trying to overpower her, but she responded with quick counterattacks. She targeted joints and weak points, not with strength, but with knowledge. A kick here, a push there, and the alien began losing balance. The crowd of recruits fell silent, their laughter replaced with astonished murmurs. By the end of the drill, Alara had bested her opponent, not with raw power, but with determination and cunning. Some recruits stared, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. Others shifted uncomfortably, realizing that perhaps this human was more capable than they had assumed. "Beginner's luck," one grumbled. But deep down, even he wondered. The day continued with endurance tests, obstacle courses, and simulated combat scenarios. Alara never faltered. While alien recruits struggled to climb walls, leap gaps, or carry heavy weights, she adapted, finding smarter ways to overcome each challenge. Where brute force failed, she used strategy. Where speed faltered, she used agility. During a simulated ambush exercise, a group of alien recruits was assigned to protect a supply crate. Alara was on the opposite team, tasked with retrieving it. Her opponents laughed as she approached, certain that they would catch her easily. But she moved with patience, using shadows and cover, observing patterns in their movement. At the last moment, she sprinted forward, ducked under a swinging arm, and grabbed the crate. She lifted it effortlessly, her training from Earth's harsh environments giving her strength beyond what appeared possible. The aliens were stunned. "Impossible," whispered one of the insectoids. "She is too small." Yet she did it. Even the instructors began to take notice. The older commander who had vouched for her nodded silently, watching with a quiet satisfaction. "She is learning faster than most," he said. "And not just learning, she is adapting." By evening, the recruits were exhausted. Sweat dripped. Muscles ached, and some alien warriors were barely able to stand. Alara, though tired, moved with steady steps, her breathing controlled, her mind clear. She had been tested in ways few humans could endure, and she had survived each challenge. Not only that, she had excelled. Some of the alien recruits began to approach her, curiosity replacing mockery. How do you endure so much? One asked hesitantly. Ilara smiled faintly. You don't stop, you adapt, you keep going, that's all there is. By the end of the day, the council observers who had doubted humans were silent. They could no longer dismiss her as fragile. She was small, yes, and her skin soft, but there was a fire within her, a relentless will that pushed her beyond what any alien could imagine. The older commander spoke to the council later, quietly but firmly. Do not judge by appearance. Humans survive where others fail. Ilara is only one example, but she represents something larger. Strength of spirit, endurance, and cunning. These are qualities that even the strongest warriors must respect. As in Wei. The sun set over the training grounds, casting long shadows across the rocks and metal structures. Ilara stood alone for a moment. She looked at the alien recruits, some still whispering in disbelief, others staring with new respect. She did not smile or boast. She simply prepared herself for the days ahead, knowing the challenges would only grow harder. And deep down she understood something very simple. The galaxy saw her as weak, as fragile, as someone to dismiss. But she had already proven them wrong, and this was only the beginning. The whispers in the training grounds lingered long after she left. The human girl. She is not like the others. She may be small, but she is unstoppable. The next day, the air in the training grounds was thick with tension. Whispers of Ilara's previous feats had spread quickly among the recruits. Some were curious, some nervous, and a few were openly hostile. The alien warriors who had once mocked her were beginning to realize that this human girl was unlike anyone they had ever seen. The instructors lined the recruits up for combat exercises. This time, the drills were less controlled and more chaotic, designed to simulate real battle conditions. Recruits were paired randomly, forcing them to adapt to unexpected opponents. When Ilara's turn came, she was matched with a towering insectoid warrior named Zarak. He was nearly 3 times her height, his armored limbs glinting under the training ground lights, and his mandibles clicked with irritation as he regarded her. You will not survive this, Zarak hissed, swinging his massive arm in a show of strength. Ilara's response was silent. She crouched slightly, keeping her weight low, her eyes tracking every subtle movement. Her small frame allowed her to move with speed and precision, dodging the first swing with ease. The alien's surprise was obvious. He had expected her to falter immediately. Zarak attacked again, faster this time, trying to overwhelm her with brute force. Ilara sidestepped and twisted, using her opponent's momentum against him. She pushed at his joints, aiming for areas where his armor was weaker, striking with accuracy instead of strength. Each move was deliberate, every action designed to exploit the alien's assumptions about her fragility. The other recruits stopped to watch. Many whispered in disbelief. She is too small. How is she moving so fast? How is she doing so much damage? Zarak roared in frustration. He had never been challenged like this before. His powerful limbs swung wildly, but Ilara remained calm, anticipating each strike. She ducked under a crushing blow and jabbed at a sensitive joint with her elbow. The warrior staggered backward unbalanced and stumbled over his own legs. The crowd of recruits gasped. One of the larger alien instructors stepped forward, his eyes widening. Impossible. She is human, he muttered. Ilara did not pause to notice the astonishment around her. She focused entirely on the fight, knowing that a single mistake could cost her dearly. The insectoid warrior lunged again and she sidestepped, tripping him with a well-placed foot. Zarak crashed to the ground with a loud thud, shaking the dust around him. For a moment, the training grounds were silent. Then the murmurs began, spreading like wildfire. Did you see that? She defeated him. Some recruits tried to hide their growing fear, but others could not resist staring. Even the ones who had once mocked her were starting to feel the weight of reality. This small human girl, who had seemed so fragile, was proving herself to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Zarek struggled to his feet, glaring at her. "This is not over," he growled, his mandibles clicking angrily. Alara remained calm, her breathing steady. She had expected resistance, and she was ready for it. But she did not attack further. She simply stood her ground, showing the aliens that her strength was not in aggression alone, but in confidence and control. After the drill, the instructors called everyone together. The older commander, who had first believed in her, stepped forward. "Do you see now?" he said, his voice firm but calm. "This human is not fragile. She survives, she adapts, and she overcomes. That is what makes her dangerous." Some of the alien recruits exchanged uneasy glances. A few of the younger warriors stepped forward, curiosity overcoming fear. How do you do it?" one asked quietly. Alara shrugged. "I don't rely on strength alone. I watch, I learn, I find the weak points, and I never give up." Her eyes scanned the group, steady and unyielding. "That's all there is to it. Anyone can do it if they refuse to quit." By the end of the day, the council members observing the training were silent. They had come to see a fragile human girl, someone to dismiss, and instead, they had witnessed her best an alien, warrior in combat. The whispers of disbelief and awe filled the corridors. Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought. As evening fell, Alara retreated to the small training quarters. She did not boast or celebrate. She cleaned her gear, ate sparingly, and stretched, her muscles preparing for the challenges ahead. She knew the aliens would continue to test her, to underestimate her, and to try to break her spirit. But she was ready. Each trial only made her stronger. Each challenge sharpened her mind and body. Outside, the alien recruits continued to talk in hushed voices. Some were inspired, some afraid, but all had begun to see the truth. This small human girl, fragile, in appearance, was not to be dismissed. She carried a fire within her, a resilience that could not be measured by size or muscle. And as the stars began to shine over the alien world, a thought lingered in many minds. The fragile girl was far more dangerous than anyone had ever expected. The alarm blared across the alien training grounds before sunrise, its piercing sound echoing through the vast metal halls. Recruits scrambled into position, the calm of the morning shattered by urgent messages from the coalition. Reports had arrived of hostile warbots attacking outposts along the outer borders. The machines were ruthless and precise, armed with weapons stolen from fallen armies, and they were moving fast. Alara stood among the recruits, her small frame almost invisible amid towering alien warriors. The older commander had called for immediate deployment, but most of the alien leaders still doubted her. "Stay back," one growled. "You will only slow the line." Alara's eyes narrowed. She did not respond with words. She knew what she could do. Humans had survived harsher battles than this, and she intended to prove it once again. The recruits were divided into squads and sent to the front lines. The warbots arrived quickly, rolling over terrain with mechanical precision, firing plasma, and steel projectiles that tore through barricades. Alien soldiers responded with their own weapons, massive guns and blades clashing against the machines. The ground shook under the weight of the battle, and smoke filled the air. Alara's squad was assigned to the rear, considered a safe position because she was believed to be too fragile for the front lines. She kept her eyes on the approaching enemies, analyzing their movement, noting weak points and openings. Suddenly, a massive warbot broke through the front lines, moving faster than anyone expected. Its metal body gleamed under the morning sun, and it swung a massive arm that crushed the defenses of the first alien squad. The aliens were caught off guard, and panic rippled through the ranks. Alara felt a surge of adrenaline. She did not wait for orders. With a running leap, she dodged debris and sprinted toward the machine, weaving between its massive legs. The alien soldiers were stunned. They had not expected her to advance so boldly, and some even called out for her to retreat. The warbot swung toward her, its weapon charging, a deadly arm of metal and energy. But Alara was quick. She ducked, rolled, and slid under its frame. Sparks flew as her hand gripped a loosened panel near its base. She pulled herself up, climbing onto the machine's side with a speed and strength that shocked every onlooker. The alien warriors watched, mouths open. This small human, the girl they had mocked for her size, was now on the body of a warbot twice her height, moving with purpose and precision. Alara's fingers worked at the wires and circuits exposed by her climb. She pulled and twisted, finding leverage points and weaknesses. The machine roared, trying to shake her off, but she held fast. Her muscles burned, her fingers scraped against metal, but she refused to let go. With a final, powerful heave, she shifted the warbot off balance. Its massive frame wobbled and the ground trembled under its weight. Alien soldiers cheered and shouted, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Alara lifted the machine over her head, her small arms straining under the impossible weight. With a grunt and a scream that echoed across the battlefield, she slammed it down into the ground. The impact sent shockwaves through the area, and the warbot's system sparked and went silent. The battlefield fell quiet for a heartbeat, then erupted into cheers and astonished murmurs. The alien soldiers who had once dismissed her as weak now stared in awe. Whispers spread quickly. "The human. She is unstoppable." The older commander approached her as the dust settled. His eyes gleamed with pride. "Do you see now?" asked the surrounding aliens. "She is not fragile. She is a Deathworlder. She survives where others fail, and she fights where others hesitate." Slara did not celebrate. She lowered the broken warbot, her breathing heavy but steady. She looked at the aliens around her and said quietly, "I do what has to be done, that's all." The alien recruits began to see her differently. Fear mingled with respect, admiration with disbelief. The girl they had mocked was now a symbol of courage and strength, a reminder that appearances could be deceiving. By the time the last warbot was neutralized, the coalition lines were secured. Humans, once underestimated, were no longer considered weak. Alara had proven that a small frame and soft skin could wield power that even the largest warriors could not. As night fell, the battlefield cooled, leaving behind smoke, scorched metal, and the stories that would be told for years to come. The whispers followed Alara wherever she went. The fragile girl, too small to fight, too human to survive, yet she stands victorious. Alara walked quietly through the aftermath, her eyes scanning the horizon. She knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen her strength today, but there were greater challenges ahead, and she would face each one, not because she sought glory, but because she had to survive, and humanity had to prove its place among the stars. The battlefield was chaos itself. Smoke and fire painted the sky with gray and orange streaks, and the sounds of clashing metal and screaming alarms filled the air. Alien soldiers were struggling to maintain formation against the relentless wave of warbots. Many had fallen and the survivors were exhausted, their morale weakening under the pressure. Alara moved through the chaos with purpose, scanning every movement, calculating every possible outcome. Her eyes landed on the largest of the warbots, a towering machine that was crushing anything in its path. Its legs struck with the force of a falling mountain, and its arm cannon was charged, ready to obliterate anyone who came near. Every soldier nearby froze at the sight. The commanders shouted for caution, urging the recruits to retreat. But Alara did not hesitate. Her small frame weaved between debris and fallen soldiers, closing the distance to the massive machine. Each step was calculated, each movement precise. She could feel the heat of its weapon, the trembling of its metal feet as it stomped forward, yet she pressed on. The warbot swung its massive arm at her. The force alone could have crushed her. Alara rolled under the swing, landing on her feet and darting toward the side of the machine. Sparks flew where metal scraped metal, and the alien soldiers around her gasped, realizing that she intended to confront the warbot directly. Climbing onto the machine was the only choice. With a swift leap, she grabbed the side of the warbot and began pulling herself up. Its mechanical arm lashed out, trying to knock her off, but she held fast, her small hands finding every grip point she could. Muscles burned, her body screamed for relief, but she ignored the pain. Survival demanded focus, and she had survived worse than this. Reaching the top of the warbot, she found the panel that exposed the inner circuits. Her hands moved quickly, twisting and pulling wires, prying metal plates, disabling mechanisms. The machine roared, trying to shake her off, but she refused to let go. Every fiber of her being was focused on one task: stopping it. Alien soldiers below watched in disbelief. This small human girl was literally dismantling a warbot from the inside. "She's insane!" shouted one recruit. But even in the midst of panic, they could not tear their eyes away. The warbot began to falter. Its movements became jerky, uncertain. Sparks flew from its circuits, smoke billowing from its joints. Ilara's hands moved faster, her determination unwavering. With a grunt, she leveraged her full strength and lifted the machine slightly off balance. Its massive legs wobbled, threatening to topple over. Then, with a final, desperate effort, she gripped the machine with both hands, her arms shaking from the impossible weight. She lifted it over her head as if it were nothing more than a pile of scrap metal and slammed it into the ground. The impact sent a shockwave across the battlefield, scattering debris and throwing nearby warbots off course. Dust, sparks, and twisted metal filled the air. For a long moment, there was silence. Soldiers on both sides froze, staring in disbelief. The massive warbot that had seemed unstoppable now lay in pieces, its power completely neutralized. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. Ilara lowered the broken machine, her breathing heavy but steady. Sweat ran down her face, her arms trembling from exertion, but her eyes were clear and determined. She looked at the alien soldiers surrounding her. Some were cheering, some were shaking their heads in shock, but all were watching her with a newfound respect. The older commander approached, his expression a mix of pride and astonishment. "She is a Deathworlder," he said firmly to the surrounding aliens. "Do you understand now? Fragility is not weakness. Humans survive where others fail, and she just proved it beyond any doubt." Ilara did not speak. She simply straightened her posture, wiped the sweat from her brow, and surveyed the battlefield. More warbots were still advancing, but the humans and aliens had seen what was possible. Confidence surged through the coalition soldiers. Their fear of the machines was replaced with hope. Some of the alien warriors who had doubted her stepped forward, awe written on their faces. "She is incredible," one muttered. Others nodded silently, unwilling to speak, realizing that the human girl had changed everything. Ilara herself did not celebrate. She had not done this for glory. She had done it because it was necessary. Survival was not about pride or fear. It was about action. The galaxy had seen the small human girl as fragile, as soft, as weak, but she had shown them the truth. As the smoke cleared and the warbots fell silent, whispers spread across the battlefield. The human, the fragile girl. She lifted the warbot with her own hands. The murmurs grew, passing from soldier to soldier, from ally to ally. Ilara looked toward the horizon, knowing that more challenges awaited. This victory was significant, but it was only a single battle in a war that was far from over. She had proven her strength today, and she had earned the respect of her comrades. But she knew that true survival required more than strength. It required endurance, courage, and the willingness to fight again, no matter the odds. And even as the coalition soldiers celebrated, one thought lingered among them all. This small, fragile-looking girl was not only capable of surviving the impossible, she was capable of changing the course of the battle entirely. The battlefield had quieted, but the tension remained. Smoke drifted over the scorched earth, and the remains of warbots glinted under the dim light of the setting sun. Alien soldiers who had once doubted humans now moved with a new awareness, whispering to one another about the girl who had toppled the massive warbot. Ilara walked among them, her body tired but her posture steady. She was not boastful, she did not need to be. Her actions had spoken louder than words ever could. News of her feat spread quickly across the coalition. Messages were sent to other bases and outposts, and soon the whispers became a story told in every corner of the Alliance. Humans, once dismissed as fragile and weak, were now seen in a new light. The term Deathworlder began to carry weight, and Alara's name became associated with courage and unmatched determination. At the command center, alien leaders gathered to discuss the implications of the battle. Some were reluctant to admit it, still clinging to old prejudices. "It is one human," one counselor protested. "Do not let a single victory fool you." The older commander, the one who had first believed in Alara, stood firm. "It is not just one human," he said, calmly. "It is every human who has survived harsh worlds, who has faced dangers that would crush most species. Alara represents their spirit. Today she has shown what we all underestimated. Do not ignore it." The council remained silent, the weight of truth pressing on them. Even the skeptics could not dismiss the evidence of their own eyes. A human girl, small and seemingly fragile, had performed a feat that no alien warrior could achieve. Back on the training grounds, recruits gathered around Alara. Some were cautious, still unsure how to approach her, while others were openly curious. One young alien warrior stepped forward, eyes wide with admiration. How did you do it?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Alara looked at him calmly. "I did what I had to do," she said simply. "I watched, I adapted, and I never gave up. That is what survival is about. Strength is not just muscle, it is focus, courage, and persistence." The recruits listened carefully, many nodding slowly as they absorbed her words. Even the most powerful alien warriors began to understand that strength was not measured solely by size or raw power. A new respect for humans began to take root, and the alliances within the ranks started to shift. Later, the older commander called her aside. "You have done more than fight," he said quietly. "You have changed how the galaxy sees your species. Many will doubt it at first, but now they have seen the truth. Humans are not fragile. They survive when others fail." Alara nodded, understanding the responsibility that came with her actions. She had proven herself, but this was not the end. More challenges awaited, and she would need to continue demonstrating humanity's resilience. That evening, as the soldiers rested and repaired their equipment, conversations continued about the girl who had lifted the warbot. Some recounted her bravery in detail. Others discussed the strategic precision she had used. The story grew with each retelling, not because it was exaggerated, but because the truth itself was astonishing. Even the alien soldiers who had once mocked humans now approached them with caution and respect. They began to listen when humans spoke, seeking their advice in planning and strategy. The small, quiet figure of Alara had shifted perceptions, and slowly, the coalition began to embrace a new understanding. Humans were not to be underestimated. Alara herself did not ask for recognition or praise. She continued to train alongside the others, always pushing herself, always observing, always preparing for what was next. She knew that her strength came from more than her body. It came from her mind, her spirit, and the will to survive against impossible odds. The older commander watched her from a distance, a rare smile on his face. "She is not just a warrior," he said to another officer. "She is a symbol, a reminder that we cannot judge a species by appearances alone. Humanity has much to teach us." By the end of the night, a quiet sense of unity had begun to form among the ranks. The soldiers who had once doubted humans now shared meals and stories with them. Respect replaced suspicion, and a new morale spread throughout the coalition. Alara's courage had done more than defeat a single warbot. It had inspired a shift in thinking that would influence every future battle. As she lay down to rest, her body sore and her mind alert, Alara understood something clearly. Victory was not just about defeating machines or enemies. It was about proving that humans, no matter how small they seemed, carried a strength of spirit that could inspire others, reshape alliances, and change the course of war itself. And as the stars shone over the battlefield, reflecting off twisted metal and worn armor, the name Alara began to travel farther than anyone could have imagined. To the coalition, She was no longer just a human girl. She was the Deathworlder, a symbol of courage, determination, and humanity's place among the stars. The stars shone brightly over the Coalition's main base, their light reflecting off the polished metal of warships and armor alike. The battle with the warbots was over, but its echoes lingered in every corner of the Alliance. Soldiers whispered about the human girl who had lifted the massive machine with her own hands. Her name, Alara, had become more than a rumor. It was a symbol of courage and strength that spread across species. Alara walked through the base quietly, her footsteps light but purposeful. She had spent the day overseeing repairs and helping. The recruits organize, but her mind was already on what lay ahead. She had proven herself in battle, but she knew that true strength was tested not only in war, but in leadership, endurance, and strategy. Alien leaders gathered to discuss the next phase of the war. They had always underestimated humans, and the events of the past days had forced them to reconsider. The older commander, who had believed in her from the beginning, addressed the council. Humanity is not fragile. One girl has shown what an individual can do. Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together, respecting their skills and instincts. The council members were silent. Some nodded slowly, still adjusting to the new reality. Others whispered among themselves, debating how to integrate humans more fully into the Coalition. The message was clear. Humans were no longer to be overlooked or dismissed. Meanwhile, among the recruits, Alara's reputation had spread even further. Soldiers approached her with questions, seeking advice, strategies, and guidance. Even the most skeptical aliens listened, learning from her calm focus and experience. What had once seemed impossible, humans taking a central role in battle planning, was now considered not only feasible, but necessary. Alara herself remained humble. She offered guidance without pride, speaking with clarity and patience. She understood that her actions had inspired others, but she did not need recognition. Strength, she knew, was about action, not applause. That evening, she was called to the observation deck, where the older commander waited. His eyes, sharp but kind, watched her with quiet satisfaction. "You have done more than defeat machines," he said. "You have changed perceptions. You have shown the galaxy that humans are not just survivors. They are warriors, leaders, and equals among the stars." Alara nodded, a small smile on her face. "I only did what had to be done," she replied. "If we survive, if we fight, smart, if we refuse to give up, then we can overcome anything. That is what humans do." Word of her feat continued to spread beyond the Coalition. Enemy forces heard the stories and began to approach humans with caution, fearing their adaptability and determination. The galaxy slowly realized that humans were not to be underestimated. Where others saw fragility, humans displayed resilience and cunning. Where others relied on size and brute force, humans relied on ingenuity and courage. Recruits from various species began to work closely with humans, seeking to understand their methods and techniques. Alliances strengthened as respect replaced doubt. Alara had not just survived the battle, she had changed the very fabric of interstellar cooperation. In the quiet moments, Alara reflected on everything that had happened. She had entered the Coalition as a small, underestimated girl. She had faced warbots, trained with creatures stronger and larger than herself, and survived every challenge. Each trial had taught her something new about endurance, strategy, and courage. And through it all, she had remained focused, calm, and determined. The older commander joined her at the edge of the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Do you realize what you have done?" he asked. "You have become a legend before you even knew it." Alara shook her head gently. "I am not a legend," she said. "I am just someone who refuses to give up. The real strength is in every human, in every person who survives and keeps moving forward no matter the odds." Yet despite her humility, the galaxy would remember her differently. The story of the fragile-looking girl who had lifted a warbot over her head would be told for generations. Humans would be respected not just for their strength but for their courage, intelligence, and resilience. Ilara had shown that even the smallest among them could make the greatest impact. The coalition's morale soared. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were heroes, teachers, and equals in the fight to protect the galaxy. And as Ilara stood, under the stars, looking out at the fleet of ships preparing for the next mission, she knew that this was only the beginning. Her name would be remembered. Humanity's place among the stars had been secured, and all it had taken was the courage of one small girl, underestimated by many, who refused to be anything less than unstoppable. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Appearances could deceive. Fragility could hide strength, and even the smallest hand could change the course of the stars. Ilara smiled faintly, ready for whatever came next, knowing that the legacy of the Deathworlders, the humans, was just beginning.